You see here, more often when we try to communicate, if you go back, the process has started as a rapid prototyping, right? Then we called it layered manufacturing, free form fabrication. Then we come to additive manufacturing, and nowadays people more often called it like 3D printing, right? Although the additive manufacturing is the technically correct word and well standardized across the globe, but still non-engineering people, to explain them the process, we often call it 3D printing. So the basically it has the process developed and come into the picture as a communication tool. Like for example, if you go to a carpenter, what you try to do, you never try to explain in words like I want a cupboard of height 6 feet, with 3 feet, 3 drawers, two on the left side, one on the right side, something like. What you do immediately, you ask a pen and paper and you try to draw something. So that is the visual communication you want to establish with the carpenter, right? So we often say a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So instead of explaining by text, we try to draw a picture. Now, with the development of rapid prototyping technologies, what we can say, a model is worth 1,000 pictures. So how good if you have an architecture model, if you have a very good design of a toy or anything else, and you have a model in your hand, so you can tell to the designer, manufacturer, or any other third person involved in the process that this is the model I just want to develop, I just want to get manufactured, right? So when I was doing my PhD at IIT Delhi, I received a lot of components request to be made when people try to apply for the patent. Right? So see, start with the principle of the additive manufacturing process. If you remember, we have a CAD model and we want to slice it as it is a layered manufacturing. So we actually want this contour information. This cross-sectional contour information is required, right? So what we do for getting this kind of image, we cross-sectioned it, we squared it, and we paste it. Or any other means we join all these layers, and the result is this, right? As you all know, this is not acceptable because lot of surface roughness on the top because of the stair stepping effect, right? This is the stair stepping effect, and this cannot be eliminated. Again, in the researcher community, lot of debate, discussion going on this, how to improve the surface finish, right? But whatever the minimum thickness we select, still there would be a stair stepping effect, right? And that stair stepping effect derived from the layer thickness, and that layer thickness related to the material properties, the particle size, the nozzle diameter, etc., in FDM process and SLS process. So on both these two processes I will talk again, and then we require the finally finished physical prototype, right? So you see here from this, first the CAD model, this is the desired, and we ended up with this model, right? This is not acceptable because of the lot of surface roughness, right? And then it requires a lot of post processing, finishing, polishing, grinding, etc., so that we can get the finished product in our hand, right? Now let us come to the process chain. See what we started with the creation of a geometric model, then we have a tessellation, then we have a slicing. So have you gone through the tessellation? Anybody would like to reply? What is the tessellation? I think participants are allowed to unmute themselves.
Sir changed. Hello, sir. Now it's okay.
So, yeah. So anybody would like to answer what is the tessellation? So that I can take up in that direction.
So creating grid points means
Yeah.
break the geometry in points.
Okay. Okay. So in tessellation is correct partially. In tessellation, we break the geometry, we approximate the surface in a piecewise manner. So everything would become a planar section. You look at here, this is a smooth cylinder, and on this cylinder, you see all are triangle, right? So the tessellation is the piecewise approximation of a surface. So now it's become a simple surface. If it is a sphere, then in a triangular format, we just like that. Or you can say you have an apple in your hand and you are peeling off the apple by using the knife. The condition is that you cannot angle the knife. So you have a cut with a plane section, right? So your apple will become a tessellated surface where everything is approximated by a plane surface, right? So with this plane surface, then we proceed for the slicing. Actually, our requirement is to get the contour information. To get that contour information, we need a tessellated surface so that we can calculate easily the intersection. You see here, if I take the intersection like this, so here I need to get an intersection of a plane with a complex equation of this sculptured geometry. This may not be a cylinder. In this case, the cross-sectional would be a circle, but this may be any typical component like this mouse, right? So on this mouse, you can see here the typical contour, 2D contour we may have, right? The we are showing here. So to have this contour, what we do? We do the tessellation. So what is happening with this tessellation? Now the cross section is required to with a plane intersection. And this plane we have taken as a only triangle. So triangle is again subdivided into 3 straight lines. So our problem is reduces to the calculation of an intersection with a plane and a line, right? And with this plane and the line, what we can do? Then we can arrange them in a logical sequence and get the contour information, right? So once we get this contour information, right, this is the slicing done. Now this we get a 2D contour, and within this 2D contour we can generate this nozzle path, right? So this would be the nozzle path in case of FDM. This may be a laser path in case of a SLS process, right? So after generating laser scanning path, the part fabrication goes and the post processing is done. Now look at this, its implementation part, because I like much in this course the bracket part, an experimental approach. So I was quite happy that yes, we are talking now how to carry out the research or experiments in the area of additive manufacturing, not all the theoretical part. Theoretical part you can get all over, but the implementation is very important. How we can take things by our own programming or experimental setups. So look at this. The first is the geometric model created in ProE. Second is this geometric model read in the, is it exported as STL file, and that STL file is read into the MATLAB. So you can see after tessellation or conversion in the STL file, when you make a geometric model in any software package and export it as a STL or save as STL, this is basically you have done the tessellation and stored the file, tessellated file in a format of STL, right? So I will take brief on the STL as well. And you see here, on this top surface, is vertical surface, you see the complete flat, so you have the two triangles. And here where is the circular geometry is there, so you have very small triangles, right? So it is just like our FEM mesh generation, where the critical region is there. We have the small elements. Similarly, here as well, to approximate this geometry into the triangles, into the planar sections, here we take the small triangles. So because of the small triangles, we can reach out to the volume of the entire geometry. Here, say for example, you see here on this top surface, complete planar section, so that can be tessellated as only two triangles, right? So here only the two triangles are there on the top. But here the circular geometry, so number of triangles are, we keep the higher. We always have to take a trade-off between the number of triangles and the geometry. Say for example, here you take only the 4 triangles. What is going to happen? This circular geometry will be tessellated like this. So lot of material will be lost. This is the volumetric loss we have. Okay. So that's why we need to have the small triangles. See the third figure. See here, all the tessellated geometry is represented as the triangles only. So you can see the red color lines are representing the triangular lines. This green color is the intersection plane. We taken a plane at this stage. This plane is intersecting, right? So this plane is intersecting, and these blue dots are coming the intersection points, right? So with these intersection points, we need to join them to get the contour information at this particular height, right? So if I plot them, all these points as and when they come in the program, this would be the result. And you can see this result will not give any conclusive information for me. Right? So we need to apply some algorithm to correct them and to get this information in a logical way. Can you see here? This blue color contour is showing the external contour. You see, if you cut this geometry at this height, you will receive this as the external contour, right? This as an internal contour. So you see here, the red color dotted line is showing the internal contour, right? This blue color is the external contour, right? This is very important because this will tell where to deposit the material and where not to deposit the material, right? Then the next step is to generate the nozzle path. Look at this here, maybe the nozzle path or maybe the laser scanning path, depending on the technology. You can simply apply the algorithm like this. This is the nozzle traveling, say from this point to this point. So at this contour intersection, we can switch on the laser. So material will be deposited up to in between these two lines. Here we switch off the laser. Then again switch on, again switch off, again switch on, again switch off kind of thing, right? So in this way, you can see here there's a pink color dotted as shown. That means here the solid material is required, right? So it may be a nozzle, it may be a laser path. And the remaining, you see the nozzle path is there, laser path is there, but it is in an off position. So no material deposition in that area, right? So this is how we do our own programming, own planning, and this is very much required even though many commercial softwares are available, right? But as a young researcher, we may not have access to all the commercial softwares, and open source software, there is their own limitations, right? So I will show some of the case studies at towards the end of this session, where we can understand why this programming is so important for us, right? So this is all about how we start the data preparation, right? This process: geometric modeling, tessellation, slicing, right? And this finally we get the nozzle path, right? And I hope all of you know about the magic software. Can somebody reply? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Have you
Audible.
all gone through the Magic software?
No, sir.
Look at this. Since we are talking more on the process, uh, from participant side, if anybody would like to interact, just raise your hand. So I can see in the participant list, unmute you, and then you can ask your queries. Like, look at this, there are three spheres, one inside each other. Right? And you see how we proceed, go for the slicing, and you see here the triangles first. Look at this. These are the various triangles you can see at the counter side, right? Here the curved geometry, so you can see here much more smaller triangles. Here on the spherical part, you can say almost uniform size triangles. Where the cut section is coming, so you can see here the small triangles, right, on this surface. Right? What is required here? We need to see the intersection. We need to get the cross section of it, right? So look at this. Look at this, what is going to happen? You see on the first cross section, it would be a circle, second, third, like this, fourth. And at this stage, you see here, only this portion of the spring portion, this blue color contour is there. This the solidification required. Say, for example, SLS process. I hope everybody has gone through the SLS process.
Yes, sir.
So like this, you can see this is the area where. Now, if you look at this, this is the triangular, right? So you can see over here, all these triangles are there, which I've shown you we need to do in the MATLAB or any other programming language by own. You can see here, all these triangular intersection points are find it out and joined in a logical sequence. So that is the contour we obtained at this particular cross section, right? And if we move on ahead, you can see over here, see, the first sphere is now fabricating, right? At certain stage, you will find it out the second second sphere is started fabrication. Look at this, the second is coming into picture. Now third is coming into picture. You can see here clearly, there is a gap between three spheres, right? So they are, and the unsintered powder in the SLS process provide the support. And that unsintered powder we clear and clean after the part is completed, right? So, and there are a lot of options are available with the software, so we can carry on. Right? So you see here at this stage, the third sphere is completed, right? And then second and third sphere going on, right? And in between, the unsintered powder is already there to provide the support. You see here, second sphere is completed, third sphere is completed. Okay, so in this way, complete the process. And when you go for the cross section, you can see over here, say for example, this, right? And then you see here the triangles, right? Look at this. For any contour, you can see here, there is an intersection point, and then, right? You see the blue color contour is there, and that contour is coming from the calculation of the intersection points, right? Clear? So this is how we do the slicing, tessellation in commercial software, and then same we proceed with the MATLAB as well, right? Let me show you one MATLAB also. See, for example, here is the one file I am running. right? And you can see over here, this is a small MATLAB program. Can you see my MATLAB screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Fine. So look at this. This is a simple, you can say, who are did the programming in C or C++, the similar program in a MATLAB. So we can open the STL file, right? We can open the STL file in text editor and then read in this MATLAB and then plot. So let me run this program. Look at this. This is the MATLAB file. STL file we opened in the MATLAB, and you can see here this is tessellated, right? So cube is there. Everything is now divided into the triangular facets, right? This is the tessellation. And for additive manufacturing, we require a two-dimensional contour at different layer height, right? So this is we do. And suppose there is a hole in this because of the lot of errors while our program may not be robust to write an STL file. So we can have we can develop our own MATLAB program to repair the STL file, right? Let me show you the STL file which I have shown you how it look like. Do you remember I have opened this file, right? So even though if you open this file in any third party package like this is look like this. This is the SolidWorks Cube STL file presented in this way, right? And there are different translators, like for example, let me open this file. See here, everything is left aligned and the syntax is just like in decimal places, right? So these are the various issues with different STL files exported from different softwares, right? So that we have to take care, right? That's why here I have different programs to write the read the STL file, right? Then look at this. If I run the crack file as well, you can see over here. So these programs we and our team has developed just like any commercial software package. So it is asking for open the file from wherever you want. Let me show you this file. Can you see? This is again a cube STL file, but one file is missing. One triangle is missing, right? So before going for any slicing to be done, we need to fill this gap. So we should be good in developing algorithm, how to find out this gap and then filling this gap and then going back to the STL file and write the file. So you see, look at this. This gap is filled with this blue color new triangle, right? Can you notice how many triangular facets in this cube? Anybody would like to answer? Anyone from the participants? How many triangular facets in a cube?
It might be 12.
12.
Yes, very right. It is 12 and it should always be an even number, right? Because if you go for a cube, there would be a 6 facets. And when we convert into the triangular facets, it will become 12, right? And look at this. Once we have corrected, I am not going, this program can handle n number of holes and can pair with different orientations. And towards the question answer session, if you wish, I will come back to the program. But right now, let us move ahead. So if we do not want to change the orientation, we will generate the new STL file and say, let me write REC, Rajki Engineering College. So it will create another file. Look at this. Here in the working folder, new file will come. You see here, this is the REC. So earlier, because of that gap, what was happened? There were 11 triangular facets in the file. And you see here, now in the new file, there would be 12. So you see solid corrected file by PK Jain. And this was the first facet, end facet. So one facet. Now like this, there are 12 facets, right? And if we have any typical program, there will be 1,000 or maybe 10,000 small triangular facets from which we need to calculate the intersection surface, right? Now let us come back, and then similarly we can go with this for the slicing as well. See, look at this. When we go for the slicing, let me take a small file so you can quickly, okay, even though we are going with, okay, let me show you first pyramid. So my program is already knowing that what is the minimum and maximum height. Let me put say 56. See, this is the STL file of a pyramid. See, this is the intersection which we are talking about. So everywhere we receive head and tail means start line, end line, start line, end line. Then we need to connect them in a logical sequence to get contour. So you see here, once we connect them, now you have P1, P2, P3, P4 at Z equal to 56, right? The next step to develop the nozzle path in between this, right? So this way we have to develop our own full set of program. Let me close this. Let me run another Q file as well. Since I have shown you the cube, so let us go with the cube first. See, 0 to 56, let me put 33. See, this is the cube STL file, right? You notice here the T1, T2, T3 not in the sequence because they are randomly written in a STL file. So T7, 2, 1, 4, 5. And once we connect them in a logical sequence, you see here, this is the intersection plane and this is the contour information, P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, P6, P7, P8 in a sequence. So we have a closed contour that we need to supply to our additive manufacturing machine file or whatever the 3D printer we are using, right? Okay. If we have any question at this moment, I would like to take, and then we move to the FDM and SLS process. Okay, let us come back to the. So as you all already gone through the different processes like liquid based, solid based, and powder based. So we mostly talk about two processes nowadays, the solid based fused deposition modeling, FDM, and the powder based selective laser sintering process, right? So I think everybody has gone through the FDM process. I can skip this slide.
Oh, yes, sir.
Thank you. So this is the process video. Let me also skip this as well.
Once the layer is completed, the plate drops and a new layer is added. When the final layer is complete, the modeled part can be removed. After support, a rapid
And this is the huge list of process parameters, right? A single parameter study can bring you at least a MTech thesis topic, right? But there are so many issues which are still aligned with the FDM process. Like for example, if we go with a nozzle path in this way, right? There is an inherent porosity. So how to control that, right? So this will be a sub-perimeter void, right? See in a pictorial view, because we have developed our own FDM system. So we have gone through in detail. You see, this is the material deposition path. This is the nozzle going like this, right? So you see here this path, and there is a lot of gap in. So it will introduce the porosity, and the parts become hollow in between. There are porous voids that are there. So that will reduce the density of the part and hence result in a poor strength. Now see, the material flow synchronization is very important in case of FDM process, because your nozzle is depositing the material, and what is happening if your nozzle movement is slow and the material extrusion is quantity is higher, this kind of situation will occur. Your road width will not be straight like this, but they will become overlapping kind of situation. Or otherwise, if your nozzle speed is higher, what will happen? Your road thickness will reduce. This diameter is reducing. So you see this diameter and this diameter, and in between this diameter is less. So what is happening? Again, the porosity is introduced into this. So the material flow synchronization is a still challenging task in that. And you see the result is like this. You see on this. See what happens, the first layer and the second layer. This has happened because of that we developed our own fused filament part using the CNC machine. We fitted an extruder nozzle on the CNC machine itself, heated the extruder head and deposited the material, right? So this is the situation. Even on the first layer, if you see, if there is a road gap higher, you see your all roads are not joining with each other, right? So this kind of situation may occur. Then see in this case, can anybody guess why this part is failed? Can have and guess why this part may have failed? Any idea? See here, the different components are broken. This is the part we are making a Dhanush gun for GCF. And when we scale down the entire model, what has happened, wherever the tolerances are there, these parts will also become very, very small. Say, for example, if I have this pen model, right? So still a decision support system is required for additive manufacturing when I scale down it. Suppose say I can scale down it to 50%, depending on the machine model availability, etc. Right? So if I do it like this, what is going to happen? These threads will also become 50%, right? And when these threads become 50%, what is going to happen? My machine may not be able to build that thread, because whatever the nozzle diameter, I can't print anything less than the nozzle diameter. Or say talk about this hole where the refill is coming out, right? So if I make it 50%, what is going to happen? The refill is not going to become 50%, but this hole will not allow refill to come out. So still a decision support system is required, so that just like in FEM analysis, the red color shows us this is the critical region, the stress developed in this region is very high. In my 3D printing software tell me, after the scaling applied, this is the area which you cannot print on the machine. Now come to the SLS part. I think you already gone through the process, so I will not go into the detail of the process, right? And in this, we don't require a support, so you can just have a look on this. Again, like FDM process parameter, there are many process parameters which affect the process. The most important is the energy density, right? This energy density is a combination of laser power, beam speed, hatch spacing, right? So that means you increase the laser power, the energy supplied at a particular point will increase. If you increase the beam speed, what will happen? The energy supplied will be reduced because the beam will travel faster. Similarly, the hatch spacing. Hatch spacing is the gap between two successive laser beam path, right? So if you increase the hatch spacing, the total heat supplied on the part bed will become less, right? So if at this stage you have any question related to SLS or FDM process parameters, you are most welcome to ask, right? Because I did a lot of experiments in FDM process and SLS process, so I would be happy to answer all of your queries related to the effect of the different process parameters and what is their consequences, right? If no questions, let us move ahead. This is a different part. And in SLS as well, if you see here, this is the powder layer, the top layer, and this is the laser beam coming. So based on this laser beam, you need to the small remelting or de-SLS of the previously deposited layer. So we can have a proper joint, right? And the powder particles are joined not by melting, but by the sintering. So sintering is just below the melting temperature. And since we do it in only in a selective region, so that is the reason we call it selective laser sintering. Only in the selected areas and in the sintering, not melting, right? So the powder particles are joined with each other just by the neck formation. You can see this is the one particle, this is another particle. And by the neck formation, they are joined. So this would be the result, right? And see, this is mostly governed on the energy density. See, so this is the layer thickness. If you increase the layer thickness, there would be a gap. Maybe the energy density may not be sufficient to remelt the previous layer, right? So see, in case of a energy density, if you keep on increasing, you see the low energy density. So this is the zoom figure. You can see over here, right? You can clearly find the gap between this, right? And if at the medium energy density, you can see here, the layer is completely solidified, but still there might be a gap. The delamination may occur, right? So this is the energy density effect. And if we increase more the energy density, what is going to happen? You can see here, the completely solid part. Even you cannot identify the different layers. Just like the braid packet, you can see over here, there is a gap, right? But here you cannot find gap. But the question is become, this is always a trade-off. This energy density, you cannot keep on increasing. If you keep on increasing, what is going to happen? The entire part bed will become a cake. So there is no selected region, nothing to remove the part from the part bed, right? So that kind of situation occur, or the part may start burning, or the degradation of the polymer material may start like this. So always we need to understand the effect of energy density, and energy density controlled by various parameters. So what parameter we need to control? Now, so that is what we understood here. I think let me check the time as well. Yeah, 12:23. Okay, let me skip. This is the centering window for the polyamide. We need to know which material is suitable in case of SLS process, right? You see in the video, if you recall, sorry, right? You see here, this is coming into picture, and the material is solidified where the laser is incident. And you see the reporter is coming back. While reporter is so did you notice it? While recoater is coming back, the material is already solidified. So point is that we want a minimum centering window. You can see over here, when we perform the differential scanning calorimetry analysis, DSC, you see here, this is the polymer material, and we start the heating cycle. So we keep on heating, and here is the peak coming. That means phase change has occurred, the melting is started. So energy is absorbed here on this peak, right? And after melting, you can keep on increasing the temperature, okay? Now the heat flow is going on. Now we start the cooling cycle. So after this graph going on, and then we start the cooling, right? So it is the cooling means heat is released, cooling going on. Here we again receive a downward peak. That means again phase change, solidification started, right? So once the solidification is started due to latent heat, a lot of heat is released. Right? Point is this, the gap between these two peaks should be minimum. That means the effect of that, physically we understand that means quickly this material will be melt, and the moment you release some heat, the quickly this material will become solidified. You can't allow that you can't give 10-minute or 5-minute time on the part bed where the material has to be completely solidified. Then I will start a new layer, right? So material should be having a minimum centering window so that it can quickly melt and quickly solidify. And the powder particles should have the tendency of neck formation, right? So if they have the neck formation, we can use any polymer material into the SLS process. Again, like previously I asked you, the powder particle, we need to create a layer thickness, right? So you see how nicely here the powder material is coated. Did you notice it here? Let me run again. See the recoating. This is important. You see the powder is recoated, right? Very fine, smooth layer of the powder is sprayed on the powder bed, right? Here, suppose I consider the layer thickness 150 micron, right? For 150 micron, I should have at least minimum 3 powder particles to formulate a layer. And suppose there is a single particle layer, what is going to happen? You will receive a sphere, balls kind of thing. And if 2 balls are joining, there would be lot of empty space in between them. So at least 3 powder particles are there to formulate a layer. That means the powder particle size should be around 50 micron to formulate a 150 micron layer thickness, right? So 150 micron layer thickness, and then powder particle again, if we can go beyond 50, say 20 micron powder polymers. And if you remember that the talcum powder, the particle size very, very fine. But can we formulate a layer from that? No. If you try to spread it, what is going to happen? It will be a broken layer. And if it is not a fine layer on the powder bed, where to deposit the material? What our laser will do? And if you spread a laser on the talcum powder itself, the fumes will start. The powder will start spreading. The fumes will come, not completely absorb the laser energy to become a solid part, right? So there are many challenges in this way, right? Parameters, material characteristics. See, this is the situation, like the phenomena we use this for the curling. See here, initially when we start the SLS process, we need to so the initial layers we keep so that the entire machine will be in a thermal stabilized mode. Otherwise, what this kind of situation will happen. The moment the laser exposure will come, the first layer will start bending, right? And when bending, what is happening here? The recoater has to move sharply on this. When recoater comes, this layer will start moving with the recoater, right? When this layer start moving with the recoater, there would not be any layer. So where to deposit the second layer if there is no first layer, right? So complete thermal stabilization is required, right? And the energy deposited are applied on the powder beam should be uniform. You remember how we cook the papad? I hope all of you remember the papad. You can unmute yourself and answer. Do you remember papad? What has happened if you cooked it, baked it in the gas burner? Immediately, what is the reaction? Is it a smooth plane like it is without baking? It is a smooth flat surface. And when you start giving energy to it, heat to it, what has happened to the papad?
तो वार्पिंग होने लगती है.
Yes, immediately warping. And the reason is uneven heating. Because of the uneven heating, immediate thermal expansion occurs, which is uneven. So that's why the lot of warpage is coming. But you remember if you fry it in a oil pan, warpage will still be there, but not that much like in a gas burner. Did you notice it? And what about if I bake the same papad in a microwave oven? Did you notice in a hotel, if you go, you find the papad is almost flat even after baking. Or even at home, you see if you baked it in a microwave, because the heating is uniform, so the papad is remain flat. So this is the reason behind all those things, right? And that's why the some parts may be fail. Not going into much. Let me skip the application part. Metal components, microfabrication. Since the time limit, let us move to some more. And you can see here the biomedical, the titanium screws. See here, this can be made only by the additive manufacturing, because you see here the through hole is the requirement. And here the titanium powder of 20 micron size has been used. So you can see over here in the cross sectional also there are holes, through holes to be used within the human body, so that tissues can pass through this titanium and this titanium screws can be absorbed by the human body. Some other body parts where the color is very, very much important, right? Right, so a lot of medical modeling is there. We call it the CT or MRI scan modeling. From this, already the information are available in 2D. So we can generate the 3D model using the Materialize Mimic software. Then this is the STL file. Then this is the support generation. And then we have a stereolithography model in our hand. A lot of cross sections are required. Let us see. You see here, I showed you the MATLAB. We also have the facility available in the MATLAB to read the CT scan and MRI images. You see here, this is the CT scan image. Hounsfield and grayscale values are different for different colors over here. So you can see we can identify the different contours here for biomedical application. You can see the the white part is the gray part is this. This is the bone, right? So here you see the similar controls are generated, right? And these are the different slices at different height, right? With interpolation, we can join all of them and we can generate a complete skull model in this case. We can do a lot of rendering as well. So we can recreate the human body geometric model using the Mimics software or by our own programming in the MATLAB. So here you see here the different contours are there. They are showing different contours like where is the blood, bone, are the different elements of the human body. Now let me show the recently we did the work for Jabalpur Hospital and Medical Research. A trauma cases like this. Here there is no bone after the accident. Bone fracture is there. So eye is gone, but there is no support available to create the to implant the artificial eye. So we created from the CT scan this geometric model, and we identify this is the portion which is broken. And by Boolean operations, we determine the size of the acrylic plate. Based on this acrylic plate, the biomedical implant has been developed by biomedical implant suppliers, manufacturer. So this finally reduces the total operation time from weeks to days. And you see here after the surgical operations, the implant has been put in the human body. You see here, earlier there were no support here to put the artificial implanted. So how the additive part printing, but you require a lot of knowledge about the CT scan, MRI images, how to extract the geometric model from them. See, recently we did the for some geometric modeling and fabrication of mandible for again Jabalpur Hospital and Research Center. Here, see here, a patient has a tubing, and this is the creation of a new biomedical implant or the bone to be implanted in this area. So this is the ideal situation, and that is the current situation of a patient, right? So look at this, what we did, we taken into the Magic software, Mimics software, and a lot of processing has been implanted. So you see these are the different cross section in three. Mechanically, we can say the front view, side view, top view, but the sagittal view are the shown here to generate this STL. So you see here, this is the mandible part. So first we need to separate out this. We separated out this, right? Separation from the skull part, then cut the deceased portion. So half of the portion we removed, right? Then mirror and lot of editing of the STL file we have done to develop this part, right? And see over here, cut section, this is the tumor portion, and from here the tumor portion is removed because we have mirrored this part, mirrored to on this side, then joined both them, merged them, so that doctors can identify how much bone gap is here, right? And once we print it for the doctor's rehearsal or mock surgery part, you see here, this is the part with tumor, this is the new part developed. Like one of my MTech student have its own company in Nagpur, who is providing artificial temporal bone. This is the bone just behind the ear. So reason is this bone is have very short life. After the death, very quickly this has been dissolved in the human body. So for surgical planning, surgical training, surgical rehearsals, doctors require this temporal bone for the dissection purpose, right? So accurate geometry is the requirement and more close to the actual human body, right? You can't tell a person, say for example, a nail has to be inserted in a wall. So we know how much force is required. I cannot give anybody training using thermocol sheets, right? How much force is required on thermocol and how much force is required on the wall is entirely different, right? So I'm just giving this example. We should have this bone not only in terms of accurate geometry with the actual bone, but as well as with the close to the right. So these are the 2D images and the sagittal views we can generate, right? And this is the bone, right? So a lot of challenges are there, missing features because of this bone. The Hausenfeld and grayscale values are very close to the blood. So you see in this area, identification of this particular feature is very difficult. Then once we find it out, you see here, this is the geometric model of the bone generated. So this is the STL file generated from this, and you see this is the printed bone and this is the actual bone. Different views are like this. Like another study we have taken, I think this let me skip. For guided endodontics, we developed the jig kind of thing. Let me take you to another application. Yeah, look at this. I shown you the lot of programming. You see over here. Here we have converted our CNC machine into the additive manufacturing machine. So we have developed the extruder heat, and here the resistance heating is applied. And here we use the pallets, and this screw is connected with the milling machine. And this is developed on an already cutting tool, already milling tool. So this we can change just like a cutting tool on the milling machine. Look at this. So we can use this extruder head as a material deposition tool. And on the same machine, we use another tool to remove the material or unwanted material for the improved surface finish. Just like these stairs developed, we can remove it. Let me show you. Sorry. Can you see that video screen? Have you been able to see the video of the material deposition on CNC machine?
Yes, sir.
Fine. You see here on the same machine, we developed the hybrid. So without making any change, without making any setup change, we machined the unwanted portion. So here we developed the model and the complete software module, what I shown you in a MATLAB programming, where we can set the various parameters, road width, layer thickness, speed, feed rate, right? We can import the STL file, we do the tessellation, generate the tool path, and convert that tool path directly into the GM&M code, right? So once we have converted into the G&M code, then we can run on the CNC machine, right? And on the same software, we have generated the subtractive manufacturing module as well, where we enter the cutter path, step over, and this will also give us the GM&M code. So both the codes, in the case, we will get the G&M code, and like this, the STL file, the contour, the infill, right? And then solidification, and then machining, subtractive, etc. Right? Everything we do. And later on, we also further develop, because it is an STL model, so tool path is generated in a triangular fashion. So later on, we merged all the triangles into a single file, right? So I think here we can end the session. And a lot of things to share, but yeah, Dr. Sharma, I think we can end the session, and if any more queries we can take up at this moment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, now time has over, sir. So we are in this sort of time, sir. So now I will request to Vikrant for the vote of time.
Participants, you can ask your queries if there. Sir, actually, I have a general question.
Yeah.
Sir, in case of titanium-based alloy, which is better, SLS or SLM?
SLS. Titanium we use in a powder form. So whatever the machine we have from the German-made electro-optical systems and Archon, right? And there's UK-based Coventry company is there. They use the titanium in the 20 micron particle size. Stainless steel 316 L is also available in a 20 micron size powder particle. In Bangalore, the GE Aviation is using lot of parts made by the additive manufacturing.
Okay, sir, but there will be residual
Only thing,
stresses.
when we go for a powder-based SLS, in case of metal, the powder is not reusable. But in case of polymer, we can use it again, mixing with a fresh powder in 30-70 ratio, so we can reuse it. But in a case of metal, it's not reusable, and the part is also joined with the powder bed. So we need a wire cut EDM machine to cut the part from the powder bed. So it's a costly affair.
Sir, but there will be residual stresses in case of SLS with metal. What can
Not
we do?
much, because the inert gas environment in the entire temperature, entire build chamber is kept at heated environment. So it's not a more like that quickly increasing the temperature and decreasing the temperature. I have skipped the slice related to SLS process as well, in case of polymer as well. So suppose the melting temperature is around 180 degrees centigrade. So we keep the entire part bed, powder, all the components heated up to around 172 degrees centigrade. And remaining 4-5 degrees centigrade temperature rise is applied by the laser only. So you see the fluctuation of temperature will be only 4 to 5 degrees centigrade. And that's why the material selection, material characteristics play a very important role. Where the laser is coming, where only the 4 and 5 degrees centigrade temperature rise is there, that particles only have a neck formation, and other particles will remain unsintered, cleanable after the process is completed. So that's why the reason, once the part is built complete, we allow more than 6 hours time to cool down the part. Otherwise, the warpage will be there. It's not like in a SLS process, you just print some part and open the machine and remove it, right? More than 6 hours time is required for the cooling. Then only it will come to the room temperature. Then you can open the machine.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question that I've asked in the beginning. Sir, can we use additive manufacturing for entrepreneurship in the upcoming time? And how can we use?
जनाब 2 वर्कशॉप हो गई, बहुत है, आप कल कर लेंगे।
Fine. I think this would answer your query.
Okay, sir. Actually, sir, you was muted right now. That's why I could not hear. Actually, I have asked the second question. How can we implement additive manufacturing in entrepreneurship in the upcoming time?
That is what I'm saying. Entrepreneurship is all about your idea.
Okay, sir.
If you want, you know about the tool. You know about the tool, additive manufacturing process and technology, how you want to use it. Like, for example, one of my students using it for the domestic appliances like this, the repairing of the components. Say, for example, I am not able to show the slide here. For RO system components not available in the market, and he reverse engineered them and printed using the fused filament fabrication process. See here the nameplates, the key rings, the gift items, the soap case, some other knife handles. So this is one idea.
Oh, okay, sir. So it differs from individual to individual. It depends on the idea.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So thank you, sir, for this knowledgeable session. It's a great opportunity for all of us to learn about SLS, SLM, FDM, 3D printing process, and application of additive manufacturing with a visualization through MATLAB and hybrid manufacturing. As a young researcher, we have also got knowledge about the scope of additive manufacturing for further significant research and development. So thank you, sir, for giving us this valuable learning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to interact you all.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, I have one question.
Yeah, please.
Sir, can we convert STL file into the G code M code by MATLAB?
Not directly. I have shown you many user written programs by which we can convert. You should develop your own programs. There is no direct toolbox is available where you can import STL and you can write to the G and M code, but you can do it. I have shown you many programs. Today not time permitted, otherwise I would have run more MATLAB programs to you. But this is another
And sir,
complete area. You see in the CNC machine we have developed. So the same thing we have applied. The STL file we have taken into our geometric model and converted into the G and M code.
Thank you, sir. Sir, and one question, one more question. So, can we control the triangular faceted surfaces? Means size of the and density of the triangular surfaces.
Yes. Yes. That you can control. That you can control how much number of triangles you want to have this. So not exactly in terms of the number of triangles, but in terms of the chordal error and the angle control, right? So
And sir, I have heard the name 4D printing. So, what is?
yes, many people define it in different way, right? In for example, in our lab we have taken the shape memory materials, shape memory polymers, right? So at different temperature they try to go back to their own shape. So they taken it as a fourth dimension is the time. So that is the 4D. Means x y that you have, the fourth you can take any other parameter.
We can
That
use
becomes
some
the
smart
4D.
materials.
Right. Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Jen sir.
Sir, there's a question in the
Yes.
chat box. Which
Yeah.
technique and material are the most suitable to print a transparent human nasal cavity using additive manufacturing?
One minute.
SLS,
1 minute. Let
SLM
me
or
answer.
FDM?
Let me answer one. See this slide. This is the STL parameter control through the SolidWorks. So we can control the chordal tolerance deviation and the angle control. And based on this, you can see here the file size is different and number of triangles are different in three situations. The same file, same parameter is there, but depending on the tolerance and degree control, you see the number of triangles are 668 and the file size is this. And in this 1086 triangle, file size is increased. And in this parameter, you see 1380 triangles are there, file size is increased. So the moment file size is increased, the slicing complexity will increase, but you would be more close to the desired geometry, right? Yeah, please.
Okay, sir. Lot of
Which technique and material are most suitable to 3D print a transparent human nasal cavity using additive manufacturing asset? Mostly people, because I didn't aware about any material transparent available for SLS process, but for FDM process we have used EVA material. It is not completely transparent. So if you can just find it out, any material transparently available which is transparent and can be used as a wired spool on the FDM process, we can print it. Now FDM patent is expired. Many people are making their own printers in their lab. Nothing required. You want a 3XYZ control, just like CNC machines and an extruder head. So any material which is transparent and which can be extruded through the nozzle. Only thing I discuss the characteristics for FDM as well as what kind of control you require. So since Dr. Sarma has beautifully planned this course on an experimental approach, I think this should be the motto for this entire FDP, that how we can conduct the experiments, how we can develop our own material, own setup to deposit the material.
Jen sir, lot of thanks for coming and sparing your time, and you enlightened the participants over the additive manufacturing. Sir, you have very nicely explained the implementation aspect of the tools and technique for this additive manufacturing. Definitely, sir, there are a lot of questions, and the questions which the participants are raising, we will give your email ID and they will consult further if they are having any queries regarding this. And definitely, sir, we are starting, we are developing ourselves in the field of additive manufacturing. We are having some little bit setup in our college also. But that much facility that you are having in your college, definitely we can have further associations for making some good project, making some good models. So, sir, we can have, if you permit us, then definitely we can have a association with you and your colleague. So, with this, I will once again thank you for your enlightened words, for your presence. We all are very definitely benefiting with your lectures. Thank you once again, sir. And
Thank you, Dr. Sharma.
now there will be 15 minutes break, and we are again next session by the Dr. P.H. Chauhan. He is a director in the IPS College Gwalior. So we will again assemble after 15 minutes, and till now we can have some tea break. Okay. We will again meet after 15 minutes.